Hello, everybody. It's Friday. That means it's time for another topic of the week. So, first things first. Last week's topic, which was the announcement that we've got merch. This is the first round, and so on and so forth. Thank you to everybody who's already reached out and placed an order. Yes, I'm getting them all. I'm aggregating them. I'll be sending out invoices here over the next week to everybody once I'm able to calculate out shipping. I should have some time this weekend to put all that together. Some people had some questions about how much shipping would cost, and so I'll answer that. That's all coming. Don't forget you have until February 15th to place your initial order. After that, I have to lock it down because I have to order everything and get it to me so I can have it by Adepticon, and it's a whole ordeal. And we'll do later rounds. Given where we're at with this, I've been very pleased with the response. It's awesome. Thank you very much to everybody. And we'll look at better methods of distribution and ordering and variants and patterns and everything like that going forward. So excited about all that. At any rate, with that, as always, that if you want to know more about that, it's linked down below. Let's move to this week's topic. So, with last week at CanCon, as we talked about on the show this week, CanCon, by the way, was the largest AOS 2 tournament in the world. Over 200 players, and it happened in Australia last weekend. 6 games, wonderful tournament, great coverage by the Honest Wargamer. You can go watch it on his YouTube channel or on his Twitch. But there was a lot of excitement because Table 1, Game 6 was a Khorne player versus a Kharadron Overlords player. And Kharadron Overlords have generally been written off as like non-competitive, unplayable, whatever. And I thought a lot about that. And then obviously this is a Kron, the person who was playing them, Kron, as it was ready to be retitled. He's played his KO a lot. He had a lot of smart strategies. He had good integration with other units. That is to say, he brought allies in as evocators, which I think was smart. He played extremely well. He didn't end up taking the game, but it was a very, very well-fought, very close game. And, he still obviously ranked very highly because he was on 5 major wins going into that point. And it made me think a lot about sort of the preconceived notions about armies and how much we all care about that. I thought about the armies that I've collected and played. Like, the army that I have collected and had the most fun with over the past couple of years has undoubtedly been my Ironjaws. They're just a super fun army to play. Everything about them screams fun. Just every unit is fun. It's a relatively simple army to play. Like, it doesn't require a lot of fiddly, exact, specific nonsense, wholly within this, that, this other thing. Then I do this buff, then this A to B to C to, ridiculous pattern matching and distance measuring. Doesn't have a huge number of units or models that I have to move around in a very fiddly way. These are all things that are my taste. You might not care about any of this, and that's perfectly fine. But I'm just saying, like, in general, Ironjaws, I guess, are seen as not as competitive. I don't know. There's a running sort of set of stats out there. I do worry that we take those as too much as Bible truth, as opposed to a data point. They are an important data point, and LLV goes to an incredible amount of effort to collect them, but they should not be seen as like the end-all be-all at the same time. They are a data point. A good one. A darn good one. But I would worry, it got me thinking, like, when you see something like Ironjaws has a win rate of 38% or whatever it is, I haven't looked at it recently. Do people get put off of that army? How much do you care about your army being competitive? That's my sort of thought, my question for this week. Because I've had good luck with them. I've certainly won a lot more games than I've lost with my Ironjaws. I had a very winning record with them, both in personal games and at tournaments. And, I've always found them to be a very fun army. So I've won with them. I've had fun with them. Everything I would want out of a force. I was able to paint them and take home, several different best army awards for them, which is always awesome. So like they were fulfilling to me in every way an army can be, is all I mean. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I'm just trying to explain that, like, if I had looked at those numbers and thought, oh, it's a weak army, it's whatever, I might not have ever experienced that, and that would have been a terrible shame. Because in the end, the army was certainly good enough, whatever that means, but it was fun in every way it could be. And so I wonder how much that factors into our decisions. And this is going to be as unscientific as of a poll as there ever was. But it is something I'm curious about, right? I mean, this is, again, just some informal data point from a self-selection bias, because I would imagine the people who watch me, in general, probably aren't as competitively bent on average. Myself being obviously more interested in the hobby often than competing. And, you know, that being sort of the main focus of my channel is on celebrating the hobby. But it got me thinking about that as a sort of concept, right? Of how much do we value competitiveness? I think for me, the line is just, is it decent? That's it. Like, if I feel like it's decent, I don't know what that means. I'm not going to numerically judge that. Is it 3 out of 5 games at a tournament? Is it win rate of 50%? Is it blah, blah? That's all amorphous, right? I don't know how to measure all that, and I'm not putting scientific data behind it. What I mean is just like, when I look at it, I generally feel like, yeah, it's decent. I can put a decent force on the table. And then from there, as long as that's met, like, it has to be something that, like, appeals to me aesthetically. Like, I would never play like a cutting edge hot army that I had no interest in hobby wise or aesthetically. I couldn't do it. But I would play a hobby army, like an army that I, really wanted to hobby on. Like, I would collect an army that I really wanted to hobby on, even if it was, like, pretty subpar. I put together Beasts of Chaos, like, long before there was a Beasts of Chaos book, because I thought that big monsters and stuff and different kinds of gore were cool. There's probably a limit to that, I suppose. But I don't know what it is. Like, most of the things, like the things that were generally rated as terrible to me, or generally rated as terrible, not to me personally, but sort of terrible and out there in the meta, if you think about, like, I don't know, non-book armies or, Beastclaw Raiders or previously KO or whatever. I had no interest in. Those aren't armies that interest me, so this has never been tested, right? They've done a pretty good job of making sure that everything comes out for a long time is pretty competitive, pretty good. It would meet my standard of, like, decent, whatever that means. So I just wonder how much that matters to everybody out there. So how much does the competitiveness matter to you when you're choosing your army, when you think about it? And if you had to pick one, right? If you could only have one of the two, which would you choose more? An army you find, like, aesthetically interesting. And I'll wrap everything up into that, like the model, the paint possibilities, the sort of narrative of it, like all that sort of wrapped into the aesthetic, right? Or the competitiveness of it. So that would be like the rules and everything else that's tied up in that side. That's a false choice. It's a false dichotomy. We don't have to choose between those in the vast majority of cases. But it's interesting to think about, because as I thought about it, I was like, no, I would definitely choose for the hobby. Although, like I said, happily, I've never had to. So it just was interesting. It got me thinking about that. So that's the topic for this week. Sort of, how much does competitiveness matter? Because what Cron's game showed to me was that the sort of standard common wisdom, maybe it is true. It's probably not the best army around. But, much like I discovered with my Iron Jaws, if you sit there and play an army a lot, if you really understand its ins and outs, if you really understand all its tricks, if you know how to really use your force to its maximum potential, which many people never discover just because of the number of games we actually are able to play, right? Time is a limited thing. You can end up punching well above your weight. And so I wonder how much competitiveness you can buy through simply the effort of, like, really, really mastering and learning the force. Again, does that mean you're going to buy your way to the winning a tournament? I don't know. I don't know what that means. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure that's Probably not, but okay. Like I'm not sure that's the bar, right? So, anyway, that's what I got to thinking about today, and I thought maybe it'd be an interesting thing to discuss because I thought hey, why not an informal discussion on this? How much does competitiveness matter? As always, drop it down below. Let me know what you think. Last week's topic, like I said, the merch, it's also linked down there if you're interested. But as always, appreciate you watching this one, and we'll see you next time.